You've seen the headlines: bombs falling in Gaza, families fleeing violence in Sudan, politicians arguing on TV. But what if I told you these aren't isolated tragedies? What if they're both powered by the same global supply chain? A web of weapons, minerals, and money that stretches from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, from Berlin to Tel Aviv, from London to the battlefields of the Middle East and Africa. This isn't just about borders. It's about profit, power, and a system that treats some lives as disposable, while others get rich. The same networks that fuel war and displacement in Gaza are connected to the weapons flooding into Sudan. This is the machinery of empire, and it's running on a global scale. Gaza is often framed as a local conflict, but every missile, drone, and surveillance camera has a global backstory. The United States is the single largest supplier of military aid to Israel, sending billions in weapons, ammunition, and advanced technology every year. Germany, the UK, and France also export arms, while tech giants like Microsoft and Amazon provide cloud computing and AI for military use, turning war into a data-driven business. According to SIPRI, Israel was the world's 10th largest arms importer from 2019 to 2023, with the US providing over 60% of its imported weapons. And when bombs fall, shares in Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Elbit Systems surge. These companies don't just sell weapons, they lobby governments, fund think tanks, and shape the media narrative that justifies the next shipment. The violence in Gaza is not just a tragedy, it's a business model with profits and influence flowing through a global supply chain that connects Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and the corridors of power in Europe. Sudan's war is fueled by a different branch of the imperial supply chain. Foreign arms, often supplied by the UAE and Western brokers, flood into the country, arming both the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. These weapons don't just arrive by accident, they're part of a global trade network that profits from instability and conflict. Meanwhile, oil, gold, and other valuable resources are extracted from Sudan and sold on international markets, with the profits flowing to warlords, militias, and foreign investors, while ordinary Sudanese people are left with nothing but violence, poverty, and displacement. The human cost is staggering. The UNHCR reports that more than 100 million have been displaced by the latest conflict, forced to flee their homes and live in overcrowded camps, makeshift shelters, or on the move with nowhere safe to go. Families are torn apart, children are orphaned, and entire villages are wiped off the map. People who once had livelihoods, schools, and communities are now struggling just to survive each day, often with little access to food, clean water, or medical care. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have documented mass atrocities, killings, sexual violence, and ethnic cleansing, often carried out with weapons traced directly back to foreign suppliers. Hospitals are bombed, food convoys are blocked, and basic infrastructure collapses, leaving people to survive in unimaginable conditions. Women and girls face increased risks of assault and exploitation, while men and boys are often targeted for forced recruitment or violence. Meanwhile, the same companies and countries profiting from war in Gaza are making money off Sudan's suffering, showing how the machinery of empire and profit turns human tragedy into business as usual. Arms dealers, mining conglomerates, and global investors see opportunity in chaos, while the world's most vulnerable pay the price. Oil, gold, and other resources are extracted and shipped abroad, enriching warlords, foreign corporations, and distant shareholders, while ordinary Sudanese are left with polluted land, destroyed homes, and shattered futures. This is not just a local crisis. It's a global system that treats Sudanese lives as expendable in the relentless pursuit of power and wealth. The suffering of millions is reduced to a line item in someone else's profit ledger, and the world's attention drifts until the next crisis erupts. But for those living through it, the trauma is daily, the losses are permanent, and the injustice is impossible to ignore. This is why global solidarity and resistance are not just moral choices. They are urgent necessities in the fight against a system that profits from war, displacement, and human misery. What ties all this together? It's not just coincidence or chaos. It's a system built on white supremacy and imperial power, a logic that says some lives, some lands, and some futures are expendable for profit. This is the same logic that justified colonialism, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing, now repackaged as security, development, or counterterrorism. The same companies arming Israel also arm regimes in Africa and Asia. The same banks that finance oil and gold extraction in Sudan invest in weapons for Gaza. It's a business model built on fear, division, and the illusion that violence can ever bring safety. The result is a world where the suffering of millions is simply the cost of doing business, and where the machinery of empire keeps turning as long as it's profitable. To understand this, we can turn to the work of Frantz Fanon, a revolutionary psychiatrist, philosopher, and anti-colonial activist from Martinique. Fanon's writings, especially in The Wretched of the Earth, exposed how colonial violence is not just physical but psychological, and how it warps both the oppressor and the oppressed. He warned us, colonial violence dehumanizes both the oppressed and the oppressor. Fanon's insight is as urgent now as ever. The wars in Gaza and Sudan, the displacement, the ethnic erasure, and the profiteering are not accidents. They are the logical outcome of a global system that values profit and power above human life and dignity. While corporations and investors profit, ordinary people in Gaza and Sudan pay the price, day after day, crisis after crisis. In Gaza, over 2 million people face food and water shortages, and more than half the population has been displaced since October 2023. Families are forced to flee their homes, children grow up surrounded by rubble and trauma, and entire neighborhoods are erased in a matter of days. Hospitals are overwhelmed, schools are destroyed, and the basic fabric of daily life is torn apart by relentless bombardment and blockade. In Sudan, the story is just as harrowing. Foreign-supplied weapons fuel ethnic cleansing, mass displacement, and a cycle of violence that leaves communities shattered and futures uncertain. Villages are burned, families are separated, and millions are forced into overcrowded camps or left to wander in search of safety. The promise of peace is replaced by the reality of hunger, disease, and fear. This is ethnic erasure in real time, enabled and sustained by a global system that values profit over people and security over justice. The suffering of millions is not a side effect. It is the predictable outcome of a world order where the flow of money and weapons matters more than the lives and dignity of those caught in the crossfire. And as long as this system remains unchallenged, the cycle of displacement, destruction, and despair will continue, while those at the top count their profits and move on to the next crisis. But there's another story: resistance. Across the world, people are refusing to be silent or complicit in the machinery of war and ethnic erasure. Dockworkers in Italy and Belgium have made headlines by refusing to load weapons bound for Israel, standing up to both their employers and their governments in the name of human dignity. University students in the US and UK are pressuring their schools to divest from arms manufacturers and mining giants, organizing sit-ins, walkouts, and campaigns that force institutions to confront their role in fueling violence. Human rights groups are calling for international investigations into war crimes and the corporations that enable them, demanding that those who profit from suffering are held accountable. Grassroots movements are building alliances across borders, linking workers, students, and communities from Gaza to Sudan, from Europe to Africa and the Americas. This is what global solidarity looks like. Ordinary people, united by a sense of justice, refusing to be complicit in ethnic erasure. They are demanding divestment from war profiteers, real accountability for those who fuel conflict, and an end to the imperial supply chain that turns human tragedy into business as usual. It's a reminder that the power to disrupt this system doesn't just lie with politicians or CEOs, it lies with all of us, when we organize, resist, and stand together for a world where people matter more than profit. Let's be clear, the wars in Gaza and Sudan are not just local tragedies, they're global businesses built on white supremacy, militarized capitalism, and the ruthless logic of empire. Every bomb dropped, every family displaced, every child orphaned is part of a supply chain that stretches from the halls of government to the boardrooms of multinational corporations. These are not accidents of history, They are the predictable outcomes of a system that values profit over people and power over justice. If we want real peace, we have to break the supply chain. That means exposing the profiteers who make billions from suffering, demanding public control and transparency over foreign policy, and building a global movement that stands against ethnic erasure, war profiteering, and the endless cycle of violence. This is a call to action for everyone who refuses to accept a world built on exploitation and dispossession. Organize in your workplace, your school, your community. Educate yourself and others about the true roots of these conflicts. Demand divestment from war and mining profiteers, and push for laws that ban arms sales and resource extraction deals with regimes that commit human rights abuses. Support campaigns for reparations, justice, and the right of displaced peoples to return home. Never forget, the struggle for peace is a struggle against the system that profits from war and erases entire peoples. True solidarity means standing with Gaza, with Sudan, with Congo, and with all people resisting empire, across borders, across languages, across every line they try to draw between us. If you want Palestine to be free, if you want Sudan to be free, if you want Congo and every oppressed place to be free, then we have to free the world from racism, from fascism, and from imperialism itself. Thank you for watching. If you believe in this message, share it, talk about it, and join the movement for real justice, because the world we want is only possible if we build it together. Remember, organize, resist, and be unbreakable.